Lovely. So welcome to tonight's webinar, 2025 tax tips. This is usually a really popular one. So often we have lots of people sign up and listen to the recording. So tonight we've got 2 students live, which is lovely. But I'm really looking forward to all of you who are listening back to this session too, and hoping that it's really of value and you get something out of it. Kelly and Eliza, as I've mentioned already, please feel free if you need to pop in or out. And if anybody has any particular questions, even after listening back to the webinar, you can get in contact with me. I'll put up all my details at the end of the session. So that's all good. So tonight's webinar is this one. If you've listened to any of my other webinars, this one's probably slightly different, as it's probably more information centric. So most of my other ones, I try to involve getting an idea of maybe some of the situations that you're all in and what you're working through, and apply, whatever the topic is to that. This one's slightly different, obviously being all around taxes. Really important that you all get your own individualized advice, and we'll talk about that in tonight's session. So really important up front that I make sure that this session is just for educational purposes. I'm not going to provide any investment, legal, or tax advice. I can't actually comment on any of your own personal situations. We can talk about general things, but particularly with this topic, it really needs to be sort of taken more generally. And then if you've got specific things that you need assistance with, I'm going to give you lots of different resources and tools to go to. So that's still going to be of value and help to you. So we'll get started. So a big welcome, obviously, to those who are here live, but also I know this is usually one of the most popular videos that is uploaded on the SCPA website. So really lovely, and hope that it's still of value. And to all of you who are listening back, welcome. I also just like to acknowledge all the amazing work that you're also doing as postgrad students at the uni, working really hard, important work across a lot of different fields, and know that it's wonderful that you're making a little bit of time for some topics about managing your finances, but this one particularly around tax. None of us can avoid it, so it's always a topic that's relevant to everybody. Acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the various lands from which we're all connecting from today, for this online webinar, and recognize and celebrate their connection and role in caring for country over thousands of years. May their wisdom and strength be with us today. If you haven't come across me before, just a quick blurb about who I am. So my name is Liz McLardy. My connection to SCU is I used to teach at Southern Cross University in accounting a few years ago, for about 5 years. So before that, my background is as an accountant. So I'm a CPA, working for mainly big corporate organisations, and then moved into education. So I now work with Swinburne and some other institutes in Melbourne as well. But what I guess I've partnered with SCPA to really provide you with these webinars to help alleviate your stress around finances. But this one's just obviously particularly useful as well, really practical one with taxes tonight. So a big welcome, and our session tonight, I guess these are some of the key things that I'd really like to cover off, is firstly just understanding tax deductions that are relevant to you guys as postgraduate students. So again, this will be really general, but hopefully just to, and it's not often that we really get taught anything about taxes. I know you're all studying different things as well. So good just to sort of level up and just get some good information about that. The common sort of tax mistakes as well, and just kind of give you some advice around that as well, around finfluences, fraud, some of the big things to kind of look out for this year in particular as well. How to stay current on the ATO updates and make sure that you are current with everything. And as I mentioned, if you've got questions at the end, Ashish, I can see you there walking along. Welcome along to the session. We'll have questions at the end. If you don't mind having your mic turned off just for the session, but if you've got great. if you've got questions, please feel
No.
free to ask those. There we go. All good. So first up is just some of these basics, I guess. I'm sure usually, as usual, we have students who are connecting in that have different levels of understanding or experience. Some of you international students as well. So I will cover off some information around international students as well. But basically, in terms of needing to lodge a tax return, if you earn above $18,200, you're going to need to lodge a tax return. This is for Australian citizens and residents. We'll talk about the international students in a minute. As you'll be aware, some of the typical taxable incomes, you need to be making sure that you're reporting in that tax return. So some scholarships can be taxable. So, keeping an eye out for those. Any money earned whilst you're studying, if you're working casually or part-time, if you've got all of that registered and you've got your tax file number with that, usually that gets all pre-populated. But really important if you do have any sort of side hustles or gig work, freelancing things on the side, to also be reporting those amounts as well in your income. Any investments or crypto income, which I know is a really popular topic at the moment. I'm not going to get into the depths of that either, and that's certainly a domain for getting a tax agent involved if you need assistance with that. But they're kind of typically the types of income and most common areas of income that you would need to be including in your tax return. So really important for international students is that you may be residents for tax purposes. So even if you're on a temporary visa, really important to consider that. And I've got a bit more of a detail in a slide coming up as well. So really important, which probably most of you are using. So I'm not sure who's international student, who's not here, but has anyone used MyGov and they've linked, at the ATO through MyGov, so you can go through that way to do your tax return? Has anybody used that in the past? If you want to just pop into the chat, pop your mic on if you just keen to know. Kelly's saying yes. Okay, cool. It's really straightforward, isn't it? It's pretty easy to use. And did all of your stuff just get pre-populated in the years gone by? Yeah, Eliza's is saying yep as well. Cool. Yeah, so it's a really easy way to do it. So it's great that you're already on top of it. Common tax deductions. So this is the way that you can reduce the amount of tax that you need to pay. So obviously when we're earning income, portions of that, depending on how much you're earning, will be automatically withheld. So that's your withholding throughout the year. So your employer will withhold those amounts, and that accumulates throughout the year to being then the total amount of tax that you've paid. So then what happens at the end of the year is that once you've put in your tax return, obviously those amounts that are registered, with your tax file number and those employers, that's already automatically there. You might add in some other income if you've done side work. So that's all of based on that income, it will calculate how much tax you need to pay. And then what you can do is look at, well, is there any deductions that will then allow me to reduce that amount of tax that I need to pay? So hopefully the aim with the withholding throughout the year is not that you shouldn't be aiming to, I guess the thing that you're hoping to aim for is that by the end of the year, you submit your tax return and you've paid exactly the right amount of tax and there's nothing more to pay. That's probably the ideal state. The next best is, I guess, that you don't want to be out of pocket, so you don't have to pay tax, you don't have to pay any additional. Is the next best. And then obviously the third is where you might have to pay some additional tax based on once the tax office sees, okay, what is that total amount of income that you've earned? And then they'll be able to then, based on that, adjust what is the tax that you need to pay. So some of the common things that you can use to reduce that amount of tax that you need to pay are obviously things that are related. If you've got course-related expenses, only if that course is related to your current income earning capacity. So if you have a part-time job at a retail store, but you're studying maybe mental health as a counsellor, those study expenses do not relate to the income that you've earned. But if you're working within your field and you're course, or maybe your postgrad study is related, then you can claim those expenses. Has anybody done that before? Are you first time or first year postgrad students? Just keen to get an idea. If anybody's claimed any of their course related expenses before. If you want to pop it in the chat, feel free. Okay, cool. Liza's saying you're a first year postgrad, perfect. And Kelly hasn't either, that's cool. And is what you're studying, does it relate to income that you're earning at the moment? So she knows. So okay, so what you're studying doesn't relate to the money. So there's nothing that you can really claim then for the deductions, because the deductions you claim have got to relate to the income that you're earning. So if you've got other expenses related to you earning that income, well, you can look at those. So yeah, so that's the really important piece, is that it's got to have that. It's got to be related to your current income. But if it is, so you can claim some of the textbook costs, station, how much you've used for study purposes, and how much is for personal purposes. Most of the time, keeping a logbook of that and all of the records to justify those costs are really important. If you bought a laptop or you're using one for that purpose, you can claim that as well. So you can travel to and from study also if you're also working. So those are sort of the key ones. Some other sort of work-related expenses like uniforms or tools and equipment, working from home costs as well. So if it might be that, so maybe your study doesn't relate to your income, so you can't claim the course-related stuff, but you may be in a job that you're working from home, and then you can start to look at whether you can claim some of the additional costs, obviously your internet, laptop, even any lighting, that kind of thing. And you can also use, they've got a cents per hour that can be really helpful rate, which was really introduced during COVID, and that's a really helpful way to work out that deduction if anybody's thinking of that as well. But the key takeaway really, which sometimes for students when we're talking at this time of the tax year, reflecting on the year that's gone, is that they may not have kept receipts. They may now know, oh, I can deduct things, but I didn't keep it all. So some of it's actually getting you ready for the next, setting you up for a more successful year yet next year, which is making sure that you keep the receipts and get into some really good habits of, maybe taking a photo of them, emailing them to yourself, making a little folder in your email that's called tax and give it the current financial year. So you can pop them in that way, save them that way. You can also use the My Deductions app, which is really helpful too. May feel like a little bit of work at first, but again, taking photos of the receipt, typing in the details, and then what will happen is that they will show up when you're doing your tax return through MyGov, and it's already there. So it does that kind of it's really helpful, makes it much easier. So the key is that you can only claim something that you have got a receipt for. And if you haven't got those, any of those receipts or documentation, then you're not going to be able to do that, but it will allow you to get ready for the next year. What you can't claim is also helpful to so if you're an Australian student and you have access to HECS, when you're studying, that means that HECS loan will be building up. And then once you start earning over a particular threshold, around 50K odd, you'll start to then, as a percentage, pay back that loan, and that automatically comes out of your pay, should be set up through your payroll system at work, and that will reduce that loan. But those payments are not tax deductible, so just keep that in mind. You can't claim any travel from home to uni if there's no work connection there, no sort of meals or general living expenses either, and no childcare unless you run a business from home. But one of the best tips I would be giving you before, if you're just not sure about some of your expenses and whether they're they're deductible or not, and you don't want to just take that next step to go to see a tax agent just yet. The ATO on the slide here, as you can see with the link, have some really great industry guides. So depending on where you're working, and this might be for the future as well, so depending on your circumstances, you may just, doing a part-time job, but even they have, retail and other here. It will give you some ideas of what are common deductions relating to that specific occupation. So yeah, I'd really recommend you accessing those guides. They give you really good detailed information about different occupations. Has anybody come across those before? Just pop in the chat if you have, but you can take note of that link, or when you listen back to the recording, you'll be able to get access to this as well, so you'll be able to get them that way. So, and welcome. I've got other students coming in, and it's fine, you're coming in partway through. Welcome to the session. This session is recorded, so don't worry about the bit that you've just missed. You'll be able to listen back to it on the recording. And if you need to pop in and out, that's also fine. So don't feel like you'll be offending me. I've just got a question. If my course is linked to employment and helps me climb the ladder, can I use tuition as? Yes, correct. Yes. So it's the crucial piece is about the connection. And we were just talking about that on the slide before. So you're right. So it's just that, and the example was, so say you're working in a retail part-time job whilst you're doing your postgrad study, there's no nexus or connection there. But if you are currently working in your field and your postgrad is helping you to further, it relates directly to the field that you're in, you can use the tuition fees as a deduction, and also other related costs as well, to do with your textbooks and stationery and laptops and all that kind of stuff. So yes, perfect. Yep, spot on. So that. Just this is a little bit of a note in terms of, I know you're probably bombarded with, you just need to turn the TV on and there's lots of end of financial year ads and sales, let alone on social media. Just really want to make sure that everyone sort of takes a moment to sort of rethink buying things at end of financial year. It doesn't make the item free, so you're still going to be paying for it. Yes, it's a deduction, but you kind of don't want to spend $1 to get 30 cents back just for the cake. That's kind of a rough calculation, but just for the sake of it. So please, as usual, as always, as if you've come to any of my sessions before, making sure that we're mindful about all of our expenditure and making sure that it has a value and a purpose. So it's not the time to sort of upgrade everything. If you've got the budget for it and you've put the money aside, certainly go ahead, but wouldn't be encouraging to go off and do all those things with credit, certainly not, or buy now, pay later. That just creates more stress. So yeah, so certainly if you can take use of it, make use of a deal, and it's something that you genuinely need, now is a good time to get things, if it can be a tax deduction, but don't just buy it for a tax deduction. Has anybody fallen into that trap before and got their finger twisted and thought, oh, it's a good deal, I better get it? Easy to do, but just be aware. Couple of tips for international students, which we might have a few of here tonight. So just a couple of key questions here. So a common one is, do international students need to lodge a tax return? Yes. If you've earned income in Australia or had tax withheld from any of your earnings, you certainly need to lodge a tax return. So you would have registered for a tax file number, and that's how you do all of that reporting. So you're generally considered a resident for tax purposes if you're enrolled in a course for more than 6 months, you've lived in one place and engaged, in that local community, and you've worked part-time or casually. So keep those in mind. Use your tax file number for all of your jobs and bank accounts, and then it makes tax time really easy because, as I said, through that MyGov portal, all of that will automatically be reported. It will show, it will link to the employer where they will report. They have cut-off times where they've got to report all of the income that you earned for that particular year and the tax that's been withheld. Then that MyGov then does the calculation through the ATO to work out whether that's the right amount of tax. So yes, don't let others lodge on your behalf unless they are TPB registered. So this is going to be one of the biggest takeaways from tonight's session, hopefully for everybody, and I will echo it again in a couple of slides. There's some really big warnings and updates, I guess, from the ATO to really ensure people are taking a lot of care with their taxes. They're not letting other people lodge them. You must go to a professional, and they are those that are listed on the TPB website, Tax Practitioners Board website, and registered. So what I would recommend in terms of some great tools to access, we've got the ATO's there's some multilingual tax resources also available on the ATO. And there can be some free support through tax resources, and that can be really helpful. So this is one of the big topics for this year from a lot of the yes, sorry, I've just seen a student writing a message, of course. And yes, if anyone's in that same situation, somebody's got trouble with their internet, absolutely, you can watch the recording afterwards. So anybody who needs to pop out, perfectly fine, no problem at all. The recording will be sent out to you via Alison the next day or so. So really big warning for this year. It's not so much just about getting all of your deductions and incomes reported correctly. So that's obviously really important. But a really big topic is around finfluencers. Yes, the recording the link to the recordings will be sent via email. Sorry, I'm just responding to those messages there. So there'll be a recording we put up through the YouTube site, and Alison will send you the link to where that recording will be. Yeah, lovely, thanks. Is being really careful about social media personalities giving you financial advice. So I would extend this beyond just tax, but people will really take advantage of this time where we all do have, there's a particular energy around tax, getting it right. And if the ATO is chasing you for something or sends you an official document, I think everybody's heart rate increases a little bit. You want to be doing the right thing. So they kind of take advantage of that stress around taxes. And we'll be giving you lots and lots of different financial advice. Please avoid that. Make sure that you are only sourcing, if you're looking for genuine tax professionals, it's that TPB. I've got the link on this slide down the bottom to go to. Maybe that you do have some cryptocurrency, maybe you've got some investment properties, or other parts of your situation are tricky. It's definitely helpful to get a tax professional to help you. And if you find and identify one, to just check that they are registered via that website. It's really important. So obviously, like a lot of fields, you know, like the well-being and health area, we've got a lot of challenges trying to battle with people who are unqualified and are paid to promote particular programs or strategies. So you just got to be really careful with those as well. So, and as I said, really important now for tax time, but also beyond that, just generally with financial topics. Don't rely on, you know, TikTok and Instagram for your tax tips. Always check everything back, and the source of truth is always the ATO website. So always go back to that and take your time to work through it, although it's not always user-friendly. Yeah, if you've got questions, I would be going to that first to try and find out. Another big tip for this year has really come from a study from the CPA, where they saw that a lot of people were rushing to complete their tax returns, and then the impact of that. So a big, I guess, piece of advice here is to avoid doing that where possible. I know it gets to the end of the financial year and you want to get it done. You want to get, so maybe you think you're getting the money back and that's exciting. But what they've found through their research is that what ends up happening is that you lodge it too soon, and you'll then actually lodge it in error. So you may not have waited for all of the income to come through. So it does take time for everything to filter through into the ATO. So you may have a bank account that earned interest, perhaps you paid interest or you earned interest, whatever it might be. We've got to wait for all of that information to come through and to be reported correctly. So what that then means is that you might submit it. You may then receive a refund, but it may be incorrect, and then you've got to go back through that process of amending it. So what I would really suggest is, don't rush it to avoid some of those early lodgement problems. Wait for all of the pre-filled data. Most of the banks and financial institutions, they will let you know. They usually send an email to let you know when it's gone through or what the turnaround time is. Sometimes it can be a couple of months, so it might be at the end of August. But yeah, really important to try not to rush it too much. The pre-filled information does really help with the accuracy of your your tax return as well. Definitely with your income side, that's often harder for you to go back and add it all up. But even with your deductions and even other costs that you may have incurred, as bank fees are a big one. And if you've got investments or things like that, that's also really worth waiting for the pre-filled data on. So yes, the main thing is it's going to help reduce, what's going to increase the accuracy and then reduce any need for amendments as well. And at least you'll know exactly where you stand. Really important too, when you're lodging your tax return, is to make sure, often we just, jump straight in and tick past all of the, the first initial pages where it's all about, your personal information and etc. And you just think, oh yeah, it's all the same. Be really important just to check over all of that. So what I guess my overarching message is, when you do sit down to do your taxes, is to try and give yourself ample time. Maybe it's that you want to check in, you might do it but not lodge it, so you might want to just check in and just see, okay, what is the information that is there, what do I need to go away and make sure that I've got, and where's all my backup information. But yeah, I think it's really important to still take the time to work through all of those personal bits of information, if it's even down to just really double checking everything, so all of your address and contact details and the banking information. Some of that may have changed, so yeah, very important. One of the big mistakes is people just copying previous returns. So there is that option when you go into it, so you can just pre-fill it and copy it from the previous year. But this can also lead to a lot of inaccuracies. Obviously, things can change from year to year. So avoid doing that. I know it takes longer to then go through. It might be worth having a look at what you included in last year's return. Maybe jump in and have a look at that first, just if it helps you to remember some of the deductions or incomes, and then you can reflect and think, oh, is this relevant for this year or not? So that can be quite helpful. And as I said again, consult with a registered tax professional to maximize your entitlements. And I know that that's, you do need to pay to see somebody to get that advice. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. If you've got a really simple, straightforward situation and you've had a look at those occupation-based deduction resources, and there may just be nothing that's that you can deduct, well, that's just what it is. But if you've got more complicated situations, sometimes that can be really helpful. And again, yes, use all the ATO's resources and their tools to make sure that you're really double checking whether your deductions are eligible. And the big thing is here that relates to that previous slide is to remember that it's due October 31st. So it's not due the 1st of July. So lots of people jump straight into it. Is there anybody here that's quite eager to do their tax return? Do they do it quickly, or are you somebody who sort of sits back and waits? Okay, Eliza, so you do it quickly. Have you had the trouble where you've forgotten something or you've had to amend it? Did that become a problem for you?
I haven't. I don't do it too quickly, but as soon as
Okay,
I know that I've got all my ducks in a row, I definitely am keen
beautiful.
on there. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. No, that's great. And that's perfect. So you do want to be onto it. You don't want to be too laissez-faire and just, oh, I'll do it someday. And then you have to then end up, you're getting penalized for that. So yeah, I think once you've got, as you've nicely said there, yeah, get all your ducks in a row first, get it all sorted. Sounds like you're very organized. So hopefully everyone can take some inspiration from that, which is great. So yes, October 31st. Some of you may, if you have engaged a tax agent before, had that due date extended. So sometimes they do have that ability to extend the date if they're looking after your tax for you. So they'll have a bit more time to work on it. So if you've got a complicated situation and you're very close to that date, it might be worth getting somebody to help you. If they can, have another client, they might be too busy. But I think we should take inspiration from Eliza really and try to be organized. So we're coming in and watching or coming along to this webinar is good. We're on the 18th, so you've got a couple of weeks to at least get organized. Have a look at what was in your last year's tax return. Go and have a look at some of those occupation-based deduction sheets. Note down some things. Some of it might be also about downloading and looking for receipts. Maybe and as I said, if you don't do that, getting into a better habit for next year is really good too. So yeah, I find just taking a photo and emailing it to yourself. We've all got our phones with us. Doing it there and then just chucking it into a tax folder in your emails can be really helpful, and then you can just pick them all up together. So that's help. Does anybody else have any tips like that they do or use that they've found really helpful in terms of keeping documentation together or keeping track of expenses throughout the year, or their receipts, or does everyone use a shoebox and shove it in the shoebox? No tips? Or maybe it's just going back into your bank statements and having a look and seeing, but you've got to have that receipt. So that's the key thing. And they do fade. So I think it is easier if you do take the photo. It's much easier. So here's just some final, I guess, some practical tips, which is really echoing what we've kind of talked through, is that you've always lodge, even if your income was low, better to have, lodge a tax return. And even if it's a nil return, which means you don't have to pay tax, that's great. Make sure that you don't forget about those other bits of income that you may have earned throughout the year. So you may be perhaps doing tutoring or freelance work in your area. Make sure you include those. It may also be a point for you to think about for the next year as well, as to whether you need an ABN. So have a look at that if you are doing work, maybe that sort of freelancing work, having an ABN, so check that out. Save the receipts, keep a digital log of everything, and be aware of schemes that are promising big refunds, particularly businesses or any sort of advertising that advertises that. Always be suspicious of, and make sure you run it through and check the TPB register. So yeah, the biggest, most helpful tools, although I know it's not new, but is really the ATO website. So using that My Deductions app, which is just available in the App Store, it's free. check out the ATO calculators, and I've written that wrong there, but it should be TPB registered to check out your tax agent. Does anybody here use a tax agent? Have you used one before? Maybe if you have, you probably wouldn't come to this because you think, oh, well, they'll sort it out for me. So yeah, it's only if you find that you've got quite a complex scenarios, I would certainly encourage it. And even if you get a tax agent to do the first year and give you an idea of what is possible, after that you might be able to do it yourself, but it can be, yeah, very helpful to do that. And this is I guess to show you visually the key resource at the ATO website. So everything that you need to know here. So, anything to do with if you're applying for a tax file number. So for those international students or anyone who's new to everyone else, likely to have that tax file number already. Knowing that you've got those tax returns. So the best way is through MyGov, but there still is a possibility to have it lodged online or paper, but it's so much easier by doing it through the MyGov. So yeah, this is the sort of the key resource here, which is the most helpful. In terms of any free taxation assistance that is that you might be able to reach out for, just a bit of research in the area. So there's a Northern Rivers, that's where one of the SCU campuses are. So obviously in Lismore and Gold Coast, and I'm in Northern New South Wales, but I know students can be all over Australia. So, but this might just, if there is anything that you might be able to find somebody local to you. These are usually for this first one. There's a lot of services if someone's on a low income to get some free tax help and advice. So that can be helpful. The Griffith University Tax Clinic. So on the Gold Coast, Griffith University has a free tax clinic, which is where there's students who are learning, but they're all supervised by a tax agent and get signed off. So that can also be a great resource if anybody wants to apply to them to get some help or answer questions about your particular situation. And then there's also the tax help program as well. So you can visit that through the website or via phone that I have up there on the screen as well. So lots of different bits and pieces of information. So hopefully that's been helpful. I know it's quite general in nature, as it has to be for this particular topic. I haven't jumped into the detail of the different occupations, which is all up to you guys to go away and do. But the key thing is really about that nexus or that relationship between the income that you've earned and the expenses that you're trying to claim. They've got to be connected. So that's probably the key takeaway there. And then I guess at the end of all of this too is I like to add in this slide, I don't mean it to be political in any way, but we all do pay taxes here in Australia and the money does get spent. Some people will argue with how it's spent, but on a whole, we can look back and see that, some of the way in which the money is spent is really worthwhile to everyone. And some of us are working within those industries and areas and contributing to those things as well, like our public schools and roads, beautiful beaches. So yeah, I know as much as tax time can be really annoying and it can be a negative for some, although it sounds like Eliza's probably very organised and maybe it's something that you quite enjoy. But for some people it can be not the funnest activity, but nice just to reflect on that as well and where that money's going. So that's kind of brought me to the end of our session in terms of the content that I wanted to cover. As I said up front, if there's any sort of specialised questions, I know I've answered a couple of them throughout tonight, but if they're quite specific, I won't be able to answer them on the spot and would encourage you to get a tax agent to help you. But if you also have other pieces that you want to maybe work with me on one-on-one, the SCPA offer my one-on-one services for free for you guys. So if that's something that would be helpful, if it's, maybe getting all of your tax stuff together or just, bouncing some ideas off, I can certainly help with that, but also other financial topics like helping you with budgeting or managing debt, Maybe you're working through a particular financial plan. Also worked with students on helping them, do some of the early stages of setting up businesses and doing all of the thinking around that and the finance around that. So if any of those things sound of interest to you, feel free, you can get in contact through skills@scpa.net.au and just ask if you could get in touch with Liz, and they'll send me your details. And finally, if you're not already an SCPA member, this is the link to where you can sign up. It's free and it just gives you early access and notifications to websites, so workshops like this and resources. So I think that's really worth being a part of as well. So that's everything I was going to cover. Is there anything anybody has any questions on for me? I hope that was helpful and covered maybe some things you were thinking about. But I'd love to hear from you if you do have questions. Otherwise, I'm happy. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You mentioned earlier that during COVID there was the that working from home kind of formula that was brought in. And I
Yeah.
remember using that at that time. And then I thought I heard something about it being about it ending a few years after COVID. I just wanted to confirm if it's still
It's
kind
still,
of happening.
yeah, it's still going. The rates changed slightly. So I think it's, and don't quote me, but I think it's like 67 cents or something. So what I would recommend is going to the ATO website and looking up for that. It's working from home expenses. And once you get to that topic, it will actually show you that you've got two options on how you can calculate that. You can do it through the cents per hour and it will give you the rate. I'm not sure if this is the last year on it. I'd have to look at that, but I know I've heard those murmurings as well, but they haven't shut it off completely yet. I think it's really easy because there's so many people that are still working from home at least some of the time. So a lot of people have gone back to, working from home 2 days, at the office 3. So it's a really easy way for people to quantify and get that deduction. So I think that's why they've kept it. So you can use the cents per hour, or you can then compare that. I would calculate that and then compare it to if you've got details of your other deductions, like your office deductions or space. If you do, you've got to be careful because you've got to occupy an actual room, a separate space in your house, and prove that that's where you always work. So it's a little bit more trickier with that one, but so yeah, the Sense one is easier and it is available. Just check out the ATO website for the update. So yeah, it's a good one.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, cool. No worries. Lovely. Any other questions from anybody? And I guess just a little bit of it, sometimes we get a question around, so maybe you lodge your tax return, you're putting in the figures, and you've realized that you're actually having to pay tax. Maybe your employer hasn't old enough. So that can be a really good conversation to have with them, just to make sure that all of that's working from then they should be. But you can go to the ATO website as well to have a look at how much tax should be withheld for different amounts earned weekly or fortnightly, depending on your cycle. So most of the time it works, but now and again I do still come across people who have been caught out. So yeah, really helpful to just sort of check in with that and check in with your payroll department to make sure they're withholding the right amount. And also to make sure that that you have ticked that you do have HECS debt, if that's your arrangement as well, and even for the future. So perhaps you're not earning enough to be paying off HECS yet, but certainly once you've finished your studies and you're moving into those higher roles, really important to have that coming off as well. So you don't then at the end, in your tax return, it will then come through because the tax office will see that you've earned, so much, which is above, and yes, you have the HECS debt. So all of those bits of information will come together. And then you'll be hit with that in one hit. So it's much nicer for it to be taken out bit by bit as you go. So yeah, just another thing to look out for. So I'm happy to hang around if anybody's got any other questions, but feel free to also head off. I know that it's State of Origin tonight for some people. I don't watch it, but I wasn't sure how many people would come tonight. They might have been off watching it. But thanks, Eliza. And yes, yeah, so I'm happy to wait around if anyone's got any other questions. But otherwise, thank you for coming along and for your participation. It was great. I could answer some of your questions. And happy tax time. I hope it all goes well. And I look forward to working with some of you if that's something that you feel would be good for you, to be able to work one-on-one with me.